From the Edge of the Web studios, here's what we're looking at this week.
All right, hey, this is the bonus news podcast of Edge of the Web Radio, episode 366. Thanks for joining us. This is the Site Strategic Digital Marketing News Desk, and I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Joining me this week to take on the digital news is the John Mueller. He is the Senior Webmaster Trends Analyst over at Google. John, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Awesome to be here, Aaron.
Thank you. Thanks for returning on the show and being the third of the trifecta that we've been able to interview from the search relations team over at Google. We really do appreciate your time today.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been going through the news, and there's a few articles that have made its way to the top, and not that we're struggling into the green here, but there's a couple references that John actually made. So what are the headlines we're looking at today, Jacob?
Oh, let's see here. We've got 3 articles spun up, and if I can find them, I will tell you. We've got Google's going to provide virtual Webmaster Conference after the Unconference sold out.
Woo!
Keywords in URLs have minimal impact once content is indexed.
Yep.
That could change some things around here, I think. Although I don't really know that it would, because I don't know what else I'd put in the URL. Anyway,
right.
I'll let you guys discuss that. And Google's going to launch enhanced news storytelling project with licensed content.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to be covering all that plus some of the Google search engine result page changes right in front of us. But let's get started. The first article is from Barry Schwartz, and this really, like we talking offline, we should start creating this news segment as the Barry Schwartz news segment. We are always talking about his stories and reporting on what he's reporting on.
Maybe we get his head like spinning in the corner, like as like the logo bug. It's a little Barry alert.
Absolutely, a Barry alert. That's funny. Over at Search Engine Roundtable, Google is to provide virtual Webmaster Conference after the Unconference sold out very, very quickly. Google announced on Twitter it'll be holding a virtual Webmaster Conference event for y'all later this year. That virtual conference sold out within hours, and they launched it here earlier in the month. The SEOs were not happy about this, so Google decided to hold a real virtual Webmaster Conference later this year. The reason why it sold out so quickly is that there's plenty of people that wanted to join, but they really were trying to keep these sessions to around 20 people or so. So it's great to be able to see the response from Google webmasters. They tweeted there right out around August 19th that there's going to be a new one coming out. They're working on the details. And with that, and John's certainly in the lane here, can you tell us about the virtual conference? John, what's going to be expected at the upcoming one, and any idea of when we're going to see another one come up?
Oh, you're looking for the next one already, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely,
like
yeah.
One after the next. Okay.
So what's coming up in what are the SEOs that were lucky enough to get a ticket to this virtual conference? What are they going to be experiencing?
So the virtual Unconference is more kind of a chance to have teams from our side discuss topics directly with the community themselves. So it's less something where we would present something and people would just watch and take notes kind of thing, but rather more that we actually get some back and forth with the people there. And for that, we kind of have to limit the sizes of the individual sessions because if you have 100, 200 people in one room, everyone's able to speak out, it just doesn't work.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea there.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, we always thought that doing just a pure virtual conference is, I don't know, not that fantastic because there are just so many online conferences out there now. People have a little bit conference fatigue, I think.
Yeah.
And it's just very different from the whole environment. If you're in a conference, like in a physical conference, then you have like all these people around you, you're tied to the event, you're kind of forced to watch, and online you just leave like the player running in the corner while you do your work,
right?
Which is a lot, I don't know, a lot less interesting.
Yeah, you don't have that buy-in, and that's what's really the part of it is that you go to a physical conference, you know, you're flying out there, you're connecting, you're rubbing elbows with everybody. Obviously, we can't do that now. It's just there's so much immersion right? In these, and it's a fantastic way to be able to rekindle friendships and things like that. So there's a lot of emotional connections as well. You just don't have that on the virtual side of things.
Yeah. But I mean, what we notice with the feedback from the Unconference is that like people just want more information, and they're even happy to do something like these kind of more traditional online conferences. So I think we should just try something out, see how it works out, and I imagine some of the things that work well with the virtual conferences, they'll be continued over time anyway, and some of them will kind of move a little bit more into the background where people actually go to physical events again.
Right.
But that's probably still a bit away, unfortunately.
I think so, and we're going to be having our interview here a little bit further to dive into that. But do you think that there's going to be a hybrid model in the future? Will a pendulum swing fully back over to full physical conferences? Any idea? Any guesses there?
My guess is it'll be a little bit of a hybrid, because I mean, on the one hand, people are kind of tired of doing everything virtually, but on the other hand, they're also getting used to doing things virtually, and it feels comfortable to be able to join a conference without all of the additional overhead of traveling there, getting a hotel room, all of those extra pieces of work that are involved.
Absolutely.
So it's like some kind of a hybrid, I definitely think makes sense, especially like we're talking about the online environment. Is like we're talking about websites, things that run on servers somewhere. It should be possible to have some kind of online experience for some of these events. It shouldn't be that you absolutely always need to be there in person.
Absolutely. I mean, the entire environment has evolved so quickly. I mean, we were poised to take advantage of the technology that has been developing, but boy, what an incredible hockey stick of engagement tools that are there now available. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right, is that we're going to have that virtual side. We literally could be in a physical conference and having interactions with other sessions while we're in one. Lord knows what that could turn into, but we're all multitaskers to the best degree now, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the idea is everyone gets a VR headset and you kind of have to walk through the conference hall.
Oh, there it is. That is awesome.
We'll see. I mean, we all still have time to figure things out.
I don't think Aaron needs any more toys.
No. we could actually, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. That would be bloody amazing to have a VR conference back to back. Oh my gosh. It'd be great. So gears are going here. All right. So let's switch over to another article real quick over at Search Engine Roundtable. Keywords and URLs have minimal impact once content is actually indexed. That's the important point here. So Barry was actually interviewing you regarding this particular point. He pulled it out of Twitter, that you said on Twitter, the SEO effect of keywords in the URL is minimal once the content is actually indexed. Google has actually said keywords in the URL have a small factor, and not to worry about it because it is an overrated SEO factor. And I know these are small points, and I know that you Google webmasters are repeating these points regularly. You probably have said this so many times, haven't you, John?
Yeah.
But we're going to ask you to talk about, because I mean, it does seem such a nuanced, small thing. It keeps on reoccurring. It's okay. Let's talk about word slugging the URL. It's not that bloody important, especially whenever you read the content, you understand it, and you digest it on the Google side of things. So can you calm everybody down again?
Yeah. No, I think on the one hand, I mean, a lot of things around SEO are all about kind of getting those small pieces all aligned.
Right.
So from that point of view, it's not that I'm unhappy that SEOs pick up on keywords and URLs and like, we should do this. But it sometimes comes across a little bit overrated in that people will be encouraged to revamp their whole website just so that they can add more keywords into the URLs, or kind of the traditional underscore versus dashes in the URLs, which kind of maps to the same thing. And what I just noticed is that when people change the URL structure of a website, it just takes a really long time for that to settle down again.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go from underscores to dashes, that's something that's a significant change on your website. We have to reprocess your whole website, all of the internal linking, to figure out what that actually means.
Right.
And if you go from, I don't know, numbers to words in the URL, you have the same thing. And ultimately, you have this really big kind of fluctuation time in between where it's maybe, I don't know, a couple of months for things to settle down. And the end result is basically the same as before. So like you're doing all of this work, you're taking all of this pain into account, and you're not really getting any profit out of that. So if you're setting up a new site, I think it's perfectly fine to do something with keywords and URLs. But if you have an existing site, like we know your content, we know your site, there's definitely no need to change things around there.
A caveat here is structure of a site's a little bit different than the URL slugging of it. If you have lower page content that's further down the folder lane, so to speak, the directory structure, bringing that and reorganizing that is a major communication to Google. But we're talking about wordsmithing and keyword slugging and sewing in. It really gets into the spam space and the usability for the user. If they can't understand the URL, because you've got so many targeted keywords in this, right? Then you're working on the benefit of the consumer searching, and if they actually don't know what that URL is really signifying, or if it's overcomplicated, I mean that's a pushback from the consumer, and you're not wanting to support that type of manipulation, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Understood. All right. So enough about that. But it always comes back around. All these things that have been tamped down for years, still have to address them because there's always a new generation of SEOs jumping into it, right?
I mean, that's also a part of the beauty of SEO. Like if there were no new people joining and asking these kind of basic questions, then you can kind of assume, well, SEO is probably dying out. Like nobody cares about SEO anymore. Whereas if you have new people that jump in and ask all of these basic questions, then you kind of get that confirmation that actually, like, people still care about SEO, and there's still kind of some excitement out there that people want to make new websites and they care about search, which is, from my point of view, a good sign.
Absolutely. So want to make sure that you care about our sponsor, who's actually helping us in search all the time. That's Ahrefs. We are certainly proud to have Ahrefs as a continued sponsor for Edge of the Web. They have a great tool to do competitive analysis, seeing what your competitor is getting from traffic from Google and why. So you can actually analyze pages, the content that send them the most traffic, as well as the exact keywords that they're ranking on. From there, you can actually replicate and build a better strategy for your own online competitiveness. So check out ahrefs.com. They got some fantastic tools, and their audits are also amazing. Some really deep diving audits that really challenge probably the top-notch deep analysis tools that are out there. So certainly check them out. They have a really good special of, I think, 7 days for $7, and you get the entire tool, so you can use that, be able to see your competitors, and build a roadmap to success for your website. So that's ahrefs.com. All right. Third article that we want to bring around is from Greg Sterling over at Search Engine Land. Google is to launch an enhanced news storytelling project with licensed content. In June of this year, Google announced a news content licensing program to pay publishers for high-quality content for a new news experience launching later this year. This experience is going to be exploring and deepening the experience for individuals that are actually looking at news, and Google's developing relationships with different news purveyors. There are some challenges, however, in this space. There are tugs of war regarding European regulators and legislators trying to force Google to pay publishers with more restrictive copyright laws and lawsuits, and on top of that, the Australian media have some additional complications with their Competition and Consumer Commission code that they've released regarding news media bargaining. So there's a number of impediments there, but overarching, Google's trying to be able to bring up better and more high-quality news production and allow different purveyors of news, different news organizations to be able to publish in that space. John, what do you think about this? I know that this is not in your lane. There's a lot of things that are happening regularly in Google, but as we look at what they're doing to try to have really solid relationships with news organizations, does this seem like a really good step to be able to enhance the visibility and the consumer experience?
It sounds really good. I mean, it sounds complicated. I don't know how it'll end up in practice, but it's cool to kind of have these initiatives and to try some of these new things out.
Yeah.
I really have no idea what all is happening on their side, though.
No, I completely appreciate that. There are so many things happening at Google, but it's great to be able to see that relationship being taken seriously and valuing these news organizations. And we just recently saw an announcement from Google talking about how they're handling the election and making sure they have fairness on all parts. They're valuing news organizations with all non-bias and fairness. So that was a really good a good announcement here just recently, just making sure that as we go into this cycle, we got 70 odd days into the election, and there's a huge battleground of getting that content to the top of Google search, right?
No, I don't know. Seems like it's going to be a tough time until then.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's been a tough year already, but elections make things a lot harder.
Absolutely. So we're watching that, but we certainly do applaud Google for making strides to be able to give some fairness to news organizations and making sure that the results are giving good, authentic content results out there. So with that, we do have an update for you on the Google Search Index, or I should say on the search results as of August 21st. We've reverted back from this indexing glitch that has been reported on the 10th by you, and there's a couple things happening on the 15th and the 16th, but we are absolutely in calm waters. So I know you didn't have that much to share with Barry, but is there anything that you wanted to share regarding what how the week's transpired with some choppy search engine rankings for our SEO listeners out there?
I don't really have any specific details there. I think the one, what was it, on the 11th, the earlier one, that was definitely something where something on our side went wrong, and it's not that we were trying to do some kind of a ranking update and failed. It's essentially just one of the normal changes that we make in search all the time. Something went wrong. I really have no insight on what happened on the 15th. And it seems like that was something really short and brief. So,
and it snapped back in a Sunday.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that just got caught automatically and fixed. I really don't know.
Well, here's the deal, and I did want to put you on the spot on that. My point is really kind of teeing it up to you. We got to calm down on the hyper reactivity that's happening every time there's something happening. I mean, Google's a system, and you have multiple systems inside of systems, and if something changes, Google also fixes it so bloody quickly, right? And and Google has been forthcoming on a lot of different things that they've owned. Yep, that was us. Then they hold their hand up and they account for the particular glitches or what have you. But we have. It seems that we're back into a hyper-reactive mode on anything that's happening on the SERPs. Now, obviously, we represent a lot of companies, and we're concerned about their visibility because it's directly associated to business. But we got to step back and give ourselves a breather of what's happening in this space. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do think, especially with bigger updates or bigger changes, it's often worthwhile to just take a step back and see how things settle down before making big decisions, because fluctuations happen all the time. And then even when we make changes in search ranking, it's something where you can't decide on a strategy within minutes. You kind of have to see how things settle down, what all has changed. Are there things that you need to do? What's like better for your site? What's worse for your site? And then kind of calmly think about where you want to take things next.
Right.
Because doing things from 1 minute to the next is just going to lead to you kind of chasing that algorithm without actually knowing where things are headed. And then you make small changes, you go this direction, but actually it's just kind of settling down a bit here. And then you go way too far, you do lots of really weird things. So it's good to, I don't know, take a step back in between and kind of see how things are settling down and if there is anything that you need to do.
And I mean, we have all the tools that are pointed at index volatility, and there's some great tools out there. But your rollouts, whenever you're doing an algorithm update, right, or when Google is, literally, it takes several weeks for a full rollout, correct?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends on the kind of change that there is. So sometimes there are things that we can just turn on data center by data center. Sometimes there are things where we do need to reprocess the whole index or recrawl parts of the web and then start using that. So it kind of depends, and it's not something where I'd say the speed of the change has any reflection on kind of the impact or the kind of the change that it is. Right. It's more kind of, sometimes there are more technical things involved that need more time to be processed. Sometimes it's just a matter of flipping things over.
Got it. So it would be prudent, like you say, just to have a bit more time to consider changes before reacting, either from a strategy standpoint for your site, as well as reacting inside the Twitterverse, reacting inside the public consumable, because I mean, there's a lot of people that can start banging their bottles and cans there. Right, being able to say, "Hey, what in the world's happening?" And it's great to be the first one to let people know, "Hey, we're seeing a major change," but that can snowball into a heck of a lot of frenzy that's just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Not calling anybody out. Just giving a word of warning, guys, is that, Google makes mistakes too. All right. And on top of it, we shouldn't just be banana shaped. Just give it a little bit of moment. All right. So for that's the news for this week. Be sure to check out the full interview with John Mueller. Link to this podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get update whenever we actually push out some new video content on a regular basis. From all of us over at Edge of the Web, stay safe, stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week.